Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I'll be your host once again for today's episode. Joining me on the show today is Donnie Sanford. Donnie is out of Ashland, Missouri, and he runs a Carquest auto parts store there. And he's joining me on the show today to talk about exactly that, the parts side of the automotive industry, and of course specifically the aftermarket side of parts, but a lot of us deal with that. Even if you work at a dealership, I know a lot of dealerships that purchase parts from aftermarket parts suppliers. But we're going to talk about the relationship between automotive parts providers and parts repair professionals, okay, between the shop and the parts store. What are some of the struggles that both of us see from both sides of the table? And what are some of the things that both sides can do to make this work a little better, right? Because if we work together and we have a nice flow, we can make both parties involved, and we can make our lives easier. And that's the goal, right? Let's get this flowing better and everybody makes more money and has an easier time of it. But what are some of the struggles that each side is going to see, and what can we do to try to help with that? So I had a great talk with Donnie, really enjoyed meeting him. With that out of the way, let's jump right in. It is nice to be able to make use of that otherwise downtime, right? You're just driving, staring at a windshield. You got to do it, especially certain people, certain aspects of this industry. You're driving, and that's what it is. But if you can make use of that time somehow,
that's just it. I always feel like I don't want to waste time, because that's like there's never enough. As a business owner, there's never enough time in the day, ever. And it's like you can do one thing and you can kind of learn. That's one of my things I always say, as long as we learn something every day,
Well, and making the most of family and friend time too, right? Because I could clear out another 2-3 hours at night, but then maybe I can't see my family or friends. And so I'm sacrificing something there. So, maybe if I can, squeeze in 40 minutes while I'm driving, kind of, who knows? It's like juggling, and I don't know how to juggle, and I'm on a unicycle, and the balls are on fire, but that's how it goes, Well,
it's like, if it's anything like mine, like every day I say, like, I write out, like, this is what I'm going to get done today. And, and part of that is like, I'm trying to, the only chance I have to sit down, I can't ever just sit down at my desk and go to learn something or try to do something, because there's always that, hey, there's always that, just like today, I had to run down to another town to pick up some parts, and it was one of our shops had a car, and they installed a belt, installed the pulley. It was the only one we had on the shelf. When they installed it, the car didn't make it a block, and something happened, and the belt popped off. It ruined the belt, like it couldn't go, so I jumped in my truck, drove down there, got another part for him, got it back to him, and it was just like those fires you didn't plan on.
Sure. Yeah. They're always going to be there. Well, that's a good place to start this off. Donnie, what do you do? You're in the parts industry, obviously, but tell the listeners what you do, how long you've been doing it, and how you got into it.
So the best thing to know about me, man, my whole adult life has been military and cars. And I spent 9.5 years on active duty, was a M1A1 tank commander. I served in Iraq. I got out and, realized there wasn't a big call for move, shoot, and communicate on the outside. And I always liked cars. I've always been that, like, something breaks in my car, I fix it usually, and I've always been that way. I got out. I took a job as a tanker. You're about 60% mechanic. You're always working on your tank, keeping it running. I did
Mm-hmm.
take a job as a mechanic, working on military equipment, shortly after the military, and then just things I needed to kind of get away from the base. And I moved over and I started working at a dealership, selling cars, and I did that for a while, and then moved on and got partnered with another guy, moved back closer to home because my father had gotten kind of sick, and just selling cars. And we had a little thing we were always fixing, trying to do. And one of my funny things is I see how bad I was as the things I did when I was selling cars. Now that I'm kind of doing this,
Yeah.
like, and what's even funnier is I go back and I talk with my friends like that, and I'm like, oh man, guys, no, that's not. You can't just do that. But
Yeah. Right.
and so that led me to, I went back to college. I joined the Guard. Um, I put myself through college selling cars, and I didn't have a mechanic. So I always kind of, like I said, working on it. I've always been that way. Um, I got to the point, I took a job after I got out with the National Guard full time. And then I got to where I needed to retire. Well, we'd moved down to this new town, and I'm constantly, with the way I am, I see something that's a good deal, it's broken, I fix it up, I sell it, and still, even when I didn't have my dealer's license, and the town I'm in, I just realized there was no, like, man, we need a parts store. Like, there's a lot of people living here, and so I just kind of did the research. And also, as I was getting retired, I wanted to go back into owning my own business.
Mm-hmm.
Is when I felt like I was the happiest. And my wife did not like cars, the sales. Like, she did not like me having the car lot. And she's like, you're not doing another car lot. It's a rough business. And so I started, and that's when I came upon this, man, parts. And coming into it, I really thought, like, I've done a lot of, I work on stuff, I do. I really thought, but I'm at 4 years in business now. And
Mm-hmm.
wow, what I didn't know and what I've had to learn over the last 4 years has been astounding.
Okay. Um, yeah. Well, a couple of things on that. It, I've seen a lot of people transition from the military into the automotive industry, and actually, I have a current student right now who was working on. I'm not a military guy, but I believe it was Abrams tanks.
Tank mechanic.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's absolutely fantastic as far as a student. I mean, he's perfectly set up for this to come in and be a technician. But I've seen a lot of military people transition, and I'm sure there's a lot to that. But yeah, I actually worked for a used car lot as a technician for a period of time, so I know what you're talking about. Where some of it's cringeworthy as far as
Mhm.
some of the practices and the normalcies of buying and selling. And we had we had Car Dash Parts as our main parts supplier when I worked at that used car dealer. So we were throwing on certain used things where I was
Yeah.
like, "Whoa, really? Like wheel bearings and brake rotors, really?"
Well, and I've been lucky. I've been able to take from what I learned there. And like, I found this out when I was doing it was, I used to always try to save money, right? I'd always try to save money.
Mhm.
Like, okay, because that's the thing about selling a car, you're trying to save money. So, it's like you get online and you look this up, and so many times you get it and it's like, huh? Why ain't this working?
Yeah.
Why doesn't this doesn't look like what I need, or this doesn't fix it? And so I would be like, well, okay. And then I would go to a parts store, and then oh yeah, because was it made March 3rd or after? I'm like, what? And and then I would say, okay, I'm going to return this, and I set it there, and I've got a whole room of just old parts that someday hopefully I may need. And I just figured out, hey, just go to somewhere you like,
Hmm.
and the people that take care of you, and laws of average, it works out, and then also those people that have like some good, that don't just try to push parts at you. And
Hmm.
that's really what I've tried to do at our store, even to my own detriment. Um, like if somebody comes in, everybody expects the parts store to read a code, right?
Oh,
Um,
sure.
And, we keep a very generic scan, OBD2. Um, and I kind of got just, in my guys, we have a kind of a can spiel, hey, we caveat everything. We're not mechanics. We're going to read the code.
Mm-hmm.
These are very, and I always try to work in there and try to give people a kernel of knowledge of, hey, these are very generic codes. These are not,
Yeah.
And I tie it back into how many times, like when I had my car lot, how many times I thought I could fix something with just an O2 sensor, and right. And I
Yeah.
said, it's like playing whack-a-mole, it's like you throw
Yep.
that O2 sensor on there. And then now, since kind of being around and, I worked on cars, but I never like knew what all was going on with that. I mean, it could be, it could be an exhaust leak that's causing the computer to to overdo, and like you
Sure.
just can't. And I always tell people, like, especially with those, uh, a little bit of having somebody figure this out, like it's got the actual computers that can scan it, is going to go a long ways in that. And it's going to save you money.
Yeah.
Um, I tried it, and I know I could just say, yeah, put an O2 sensor on it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I think it's really paid off for us. I have a really good customer base. I'm blessed. I really am. And I think, a lot of that stems back to that.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's almost like, you have to compete with the other part stores. So, all of them do it, the free
Mm-hmm.
code scan or whatever. But then of course it's so easy to, oh yeah, oh, that code here, buy this sensor or buy this
Yeah.
module or whatever. And maybe you get lucky, maybe it fixes it or not. But there's so much more to it that the general public doesn't realize. That was actually one of the things I was wondering about as a parts professional. Is it easier to, maybe easier is not even the right word, but what would you prefer if you only dealt with retail customers or if you only dealt with repair shops? Which one do you think it would be?
Yeah, that was that's a rough one because both of them. I love my shops. I really do. Since I've gotten to kind of be in this, I really do love the shops, but I really like helping people on the DIY side.
Uh-huh.
That's a real like hard choice to be like asking me I'm like, in this business, you really need both. You really
Mm-hmm.
do. Um, your sales based is volume with them shops. Your margins are a lot tighter.
Yeah.
Which and they should be. You guys buy a lot of parts. Um, but on the DIY side, it's very rewarding when you see somebody come in because it's very rewarding to see somebody come in. Because that's what I always loved about it. You go in the parts store, I can do this myself, I can fix this,
Uh-huh.
and and you go in, you did that, and you're taking care of your stuff, and sometimes nobody cares about your stuff like
Yep.
and that's kind of one of the things I've always looked at. Like if you're the one that's doing the small amount of maintenance on it, you can look at your stuff and you can start to learn, and it helps you be a better. And I've really tried because that's tough. Because then on the other side of it, I really, I really enjoy being in the shops. I really, as my role is, I own the store, but I kind of work as the commercial guy. I just kind of catch all. I work on the counter. But I do have two guys, and I'm blessed with them too. They cover the counter, but I do a lot of like, if the shops need something and it's not quite driving, I'll just jump in my car and drive over there, grab it, look at it, bring it back. Because that's one of the things, I kind of take that as my job, and I really like to get back to what you asked me. I enjoy that. I really do. But I also enjoy, I've got some people that come in on that, just some amazing stories. Like I've got a guy who was a mechanic for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and I can't remember how long it was, but he was a mechanic for a good portion of his adult life. Something clicked, and he went to medical school. He's now a
Mm.
doctor.
Wow.
Um, he comes in on the weekends. He's always working on something. He's always got something
Nice.
torn apart. Yeah, and he comes in, and and I'm not talking about just doing little stuff. I mean, he's tearing a motor apart. And it's like, huh, he's a doctor, and he's close to like, I'd say he's in his late 50s, but it's just a really unique story. And it's like, I learn from him every day, like when he comes in, and he'll tell me stuff um,
Yeah.
I just love that part of it too. And that's the other thing on the DIY side is I can kind of straddle that of sometimes people come in and it's like right off, you can kind of gauge and say, whoa, you need to just take this somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And often to my own detriment, like I know if I was like one of the other bigger box stores or something, maybe saying like, hey, you need to buy this or you need to buy that. And I'm like, no, look, you're just go over here. I got to sleep at night. And I figure it'll come back to me.
Yeah.
And so far it's been very, very successful.
Well,
And
that's where a lot of us started doing it ourselves when, at least for me, when I was a teenager and barely knew what I was doing. You could walk into the local, Napa store or Riley's or whatever it was in town and get those spark plugs and figure it
yeah,
out. And that's the beginnings of it, to say that, oh, hey, maybe I should go to tech school and start learning more of this stuff. So it's good that DIY stuff is there. Because if you think about it, a lot of other career paths or industries don't necessarily have that. There's not like a
mm-mm,
parts store for an iPhone. If you want to,
right,
if you want to get into something like that, like you can't just go up the road and get parts. I mean, maybe somewhere you can, but where I'm at, you can't just go up the road and get parts to fix stuff like that. So that maybe that deters somebody from getting into it. So I always thought that was cool. And I always, well, still to this day, I've been around the same area for many years, and our local Napa store. And honestly, you can think of what you want of Napa. This is more of how this particular store is run.
sure,
When I started out 19, 20 years old doing this, they still have the same people to this day. I'm 35 now, that are at the front counter and
that's awesome.
working, doing the parts thing as they did back then. And I mean, for any business, it doesn't matter, parts store or not,
Right.
to retain employees for that
Yeah.
long, that's saying something about what they're doing. But you can experience it just with every interaction. Like, you go up there, you're going to deal with a professional, somebody like
hmm
yourself, that's like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to go that extra mile, do what I need to make sure that you get the right part and you get good
Right.
service, and you're going to go back there, right? Again, regardless of what you think of Napa parts or
hmm
whatever they supplier, you're going to keep going back for that service. That was always the biggest thing for me,
Absolutely.
is like, who am I dealing with? Not so much all the time, what am I dealing with?
Right. I mean, it's one of the things you buy from people. You really
Mhm.
do, and that's really what we try to push. Yeah, I don't get into a big of bashing the other stores. Maybe sometimes for fun, but
Yeah,
we have a lot of the same stuff. We have a few major product lines are different,
sure.
but yeah, it does come down to people, and that's what we one of my biggest surprises about coming into this industry, like the parts side of it, is there's not a lot of training for us. Um,
Mm.
there's not. And so I came from the military where it's all about training. It's all about like, how always, know yourself, seek self-improvement. And, so I looked around and, I started studying the ASE, I got ASE
Hmm.
parts. I made it a big deal in my store. And I wasn't getting very many offers on it. And, I was kind of putting it out there. Like, hey, I really, and I bought the books and had them on the counter. Every now and then I asked questions from it, or I put a little bulletin board up, like, hey, asking questions on, ASE stuff. Finally, I just said, you know what? I went down, took the test. I was surprised. I mean, I got a college degree, and it was a pretty tough test. I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's pretty. I was kind of like, wow. And, I passed. And then, when another one of my guys, I offered him, I was like, I'll tell you what, so I was really wanting, cause I really want people to be trained. Like I want that as to be a benchmark of some kind of having training.
Sure.
And, one of my guys, I said, hey guys, I'll give you guys $1 an hour raise. Like boom, instant. And I had one guy take me up an offer. I have another person who's working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah. And, we gladly, promote that. Another thing I do, I'm building it now. I don't got it done, but I want to get like windshield wipers. Like, how did they get so hard to install these days? And there's some of them that's like, huh. And
Yeah.
opening it up, like I said, I didn't have much training, so it's all been like on the fly for me. And I had a day where I first opened up. I wasn't open maybe 2 months, and a guy come in, and I think it was like a Chevy, and it was the ones that they got to kind of slide in and click over, and I just could not figure it out. And I told him, I was like, I'm just gonna give you your money back. I'm sorry. I was like, felt so defeated. And the guy was like, pumped me up. He's like, oh man, we got this. And we watched a YouTube video, and I figured it out. And like something clicked for me from then. So then now windshield wipers have been like my thing. So like now like, we have tough windshield wipers, and nobody can figure it out. It's like, oh, get Donnie, he'll get it. And I go out there, because I'm like, oh, you gotta take this piece off, put this piece on, pull this piece off, and it should click in. There you go.
Sure. I remember when I was, it was actually, I think the first shop that I worked in, I was still in tech school, and I learned a really hard lesson. So, you flip the arm up that's spring loaded, right? And you can have it stand straight up, right? And then, well, that makes it really easy to take the blade off of it, right? Because it's standing straight up. So that's what I did. I flipped it up. I took the blade off, and I turn around and I'm unpackaging the new one, ready to put it on, right? Well, I must have not had it all the way straight up. So yeah, it came straight down and right on the windshield. And of course there's no blade on it. So it's metal, and it cracked their windshield.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, oh, all right. Well, that was all my fault. So, and sometimes you got to learn the lesson the hard way. Even on something stupid like wiper blades, you still have to be, thinking about it. And yeah, some of those clips are stupid.
They are. It's like, oh, how did this be what made it through? Like, I mean, I get it. There's probably some real good answer of, it fits a wide variety and they can get the most out of it, but
sure.
Sometimes it is tough. And, and that's one of the things we do. We put them on, everybody kind of expects that. And, so get back to what I was saying was I'm going out and getting like old windshield wipers off of from the junkyard, and I'm going to build a board, and it's going to be my, so I get new people and stuff. It's like you train, like, put these windshield wipers on, figure it out.
Yep.
Nothing looks worse than you're out there and you're got like 5 sets of wipers out, can't get them on the car.
Well, so you bring up something good there. It's training and, being a professional. And I think that goes beyond the parts person too. And I mean, that's the joke. I've seen a meme about it where you go to the parts store and, well, exactly. You're asking them for wiper blades, and the parts guy's asking you if it's 4-wheel drive or 2-wheel drive, right? That's the joke, but it's the same thing with, here's what I saw when I was a tech. It's the same thing with the service writer at the repair shop. It's the same thing with the technician. You could have a lack of training at any level there, and there's going to be a breakdown. And I think that's something that we wanted to talk about was, the relationship between the repair shop and the parts store. And obviously there can be a lot of problems. There is a lot of problems, and there's a lot of like the blame game as far as, because I have friends that manage parts stores, and I hear about it, and I was a technician and I lived it. And I'm sure you have plenty of things to say on this as well.
It is. And it seems that is a very easy trap to fall into. Everybody just wants to. I had a person that worked for me before. I've been blessed. I've had some really good people work for me. But everybody always kind of has their thing. And that's an easy trap to fall into is, with a lot of things won't go right. And this is not easy. I tell people this all the time. Like, people like laugh, parts are not easy. And there's a lot to it, and you got to pay attention, and it could go sideways so quick. It happens. It actually happens all the time. You see it a lot, you get it. And that the one of the things when you sent me, I have on there communication. That's one of the biggest struggles is communication. And, that is what happens. And then people get to that. I always say, guys, we don't fix blame. We fix problems. We don't need to tear each other down. I'm really big on that. I got like I made it up a long time ago, and it's kind of like I've changed it over the years, but it's my code of contact. The soldiers always say code of conduct. I got my own personal one.
Okay.
And my number one rule is fun is fundamental, and I tell people every day, I didn't open my own business to be miserable,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean like we're going to have fun and it's a party every day. Fun for me is winning. It's like taking care of our customers. It's like, when they come in, you see that change on their face or you took care of them and, have fun that way, have fun. We can cut up a little bit, it is this industry. There's a lot of fun to be had.
Sure.
But there's also a lot of misery to be had when things don't work, and it happens so often, and
Yep.
it can be. And what I've found is you can always just take that opportunity to like say, hey, don't fix blame, fix problem, and then I see a lot of people want to just like, well, I didn't do that, and they'll just let it go. And then, and like, don't let things fester, to me, I always think about it like how the shop would be. And I know they're sitting over there and they're like, what's going on? Are they doing anything? And I'm like, did you call? Bad news don't get better with time. So
Yeah.
Call, we figure it out. We can, and even if the answer is that we don't get the part, but we found it here and this is where you can go so you can get that car off your rack, and we do that. I'm really big on that. I try to really push that. And that is tough. That's a very tough, you brought that up. That's a very tough animal to fight in our businesses. People want to blame each other instead of just fixing it,
Yeah. I mean, the most common scenario that I can think of is you get the wrong part, right? You order a seal. Okay. Honestly, one of the toughest things I remember from the aftermarket was to get the right axle seal or differential seal for something. Right. And again, not that it's an easy thing, but I recall that on a regular basis, we'd have to order 2 or 3 in order to get the right one. And it's, as a technician, as a service writer, it's so easy to blame the parts provider because I told you what car it was. Maybe I even told you what axle was in this thing and I still got the wrong seal. What are these guys doing over there?
And we get that.
I'm sure. What can
so I just had this today, kind
okay.
of. But I've got a great relationship with my shops. I really do. And not saying that it's always sunshine and rainbows. I mean, we have our struggles every day, but today, so it was like I want to say maybe a 2012 Chevy Top Kick. And a lot of those, depending on what's been added to it or where it's been to have whatever, like they use this thing as a flatbed and it's been converted. There's a lot of like, you can't just look it up. And I've even tried to call Chevy, and you can't dial some of those things in because they've been built somewhere. Or they've got like some kind of additional package put on them outside.
Okay.
And it just took like, that's what I was saying. I jumped in my truck, went over there, put eyes on it, let me see this, took it back to the store. We mic'd it, pulled out the books, did it old school if we have to, whatever we got to do, try to figure it out. Or, and I've had this, it's like, hey, this thing, we found it today. It was really actually ended up being pretty simple once we got it figured out. But, we had one a while back ago and it was the same scenario on those, these were like a bus that's been converted, like a limousine bus. So they've been built somewhere, and this one's a little bit older. And it was some switch on the AC, and nobody. I mean, it was just almost impossible because nobody had like the business that built them isn't even around anymore. And that stuff can get really tough. And you think like, hey, I gave you the VIN, I gave you this, and it's like, well, that doesn't really walk you in on a lot of things. You'd be shocked at how much the VIN doesn't tell us.
Oh yeah. No, it's ridiculous how, I deal with a lot with the scan tool side of things, and you'll punch in the VIN or the scan tool will read the VIN automatically. And then you still have to answer 8 questions about the vehicle as far as what options. So I'm like, what's the point of the 17 digits or whatever? Doesn't that tell you? But obviously not.
Right. It's like, isn't that information in there?
Yeah, there's so much to it. And like you say, when there's oddball or aftermarket stuff, then it's even worse. But being that guy that goes that extra mile, places are going to trust you and work with you more.
I've literally, because I get it. I always try to think about it from their shoes. Like, you've got a car, because I look at it like this, and I tell them all, when you're successful, I'm more successful, right? So the more cars they fix, the more parts they're buying.
For sure.
They don't buy 100% from me. I don't have everything, and there's times like, just things that just work out, and I get it. It used to really kind of, when I first got in business, like, oh, what? Now I get it. I've really, since I've got such a good, I really do have a great relationship. We do things like we make it personal, and, I know their family, we try to go at least, before COVID, and we're going to get back to doing it again, of taking the owners of the shops out to eat. Me and my wife's 50-50 on the business with me. She's in the store with me every day.
Okay.
And we take the shops out to dinner. We sit down, we talk, and there's a lot, because communication is key. And the big thing that I've seen help, is the programs, like we have web links, and everyone has their thing that, you order parts off of. And getting, I had a shop that, they just weren't coming around to it, which, at first I was like, well, that's cool, because they call me, and they need me. I feel like they need me. But then I really worked with like helping them kind of learn it, which it was different for me, because it's the web link side is different from our side. But once I've got them using it, and shoot, I've got their parts person, they've really came a long ways, a long ways. Now they're ordering parts, and that's because you can see the part, and it's one thing. That's the biggest thing for me, is when you're on the phone, you're painting a picture for me. And
it kind of looks like, it's round here, and it's, okay.
It's, and, and we all know there's different terminologies for the same thing. Like some things are called different. And you may have called, and some, so it'd always be that. But once we've got on that, they've really caught fire with it. Like they order, it started out just from every now and then, and then, it's really gotten a lot better. And I always say, because look, you're looking at the part, when you're looking at it on the car right there, like, that's why I always have to run over. And I think a lot of that was, I would run over and I would say, hey, pull up your computer, let me see your web links. And then I'm looking at it and doing, and, and it really helps cut a lot of that communication. But there is times you have to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm not seeing it here.
Yep. Well, and that's when the professional, comes to the play and is able to help somebody. Because I remember that too, that transition. Because when I first started, there wasn't really anything like that. Very, very minimal online. You had to describe it or know what it was called, or have some way of translating it to the parts guy. And some parts are weird, right? Like I remember trying to explain a door check. And I mean, maybe I'll ask you, if I say door check, does that mean anything to you?
Are you talking like when you open the door and it keeps it from like flying open?
Exactly. Well, it's the like the piece in the jamb that has a detent in it. That will stop the door at certain positions as it opens. And it's this little ratcheting mechanism in the door jamb, right? And I remember trying to explain that because I didn't know what it was called. Like, I knew what it did, I knew where it was, I had it in my hand, and I'm like trying to explain it to the parts guy, right? And it would have been so much easier if I had something online and I could just look up door pieces and, oh, there it is. Okay, I see it. I imagine the online thing increases the amount of success quite a bit. But yeah, you get down to that oddball thing that you need somebody to find, and you got to have somebody who knows their stuff in order to help you out there, for sure.
And pay attention, and usually, and sadly though, it comes from the experience of, just like you, like breaking that windshield, now every time you take one of those off, you set it down carefully.
Yep, exactly.
And that's sadly like what I see, like, and I went through a lot of that. I said for me, it was kind of like, I learned like trying to walk through a grenade field, it was like, boom, oh, don't step there. It was, because I did a lot, like they tell me. I remember a funny one, it was the, in the AC, all the little, like the doorman, gosh, why is it slipping in my, opens and closes in there. They always break,
for the mode doors, or you're talking about
like the mode door actuators.
Actuator, okay.
And what's that name for them? Glendor.
Oh, okay.
And I thought he was saying Blendor, or no, he's saying Blendor, and I thought he was saying Glendor, and I'm like, what is a Glendor? And it's silly things like that.
Right.
That could be a 15-minute like looking for something like, man, goodness, not even finding this.
I, I work with a number of Vietnamese shops and fantastic people. I actually prefer to work with them because they're awesome people, extremely hardworking, and they're happy to pay me for my services. But the on the phone stuff between us, that gets difficult sometimes because they don't always understand what I'm saying, and I don't always understand what they're saying. And yeah, I might get a Glendor or something like that. I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Yeah,
because it came down to he had a little bit of a draw, and I was like, Glendor. I don't know what this is. You know?
That's awesome.
And there's little things like the way our computer system files things is not. I think there's one like it's like the was it like a rear main seal? It's like a crankcase seal. Like it's just labeled different. In some areas, not in others, or torsion bars and track bars,
sure.
And I'm sure, like I said, I haven't figured it out. The way my brain works, someday I might. Like I got to know why things are like that. But I'm sure there's maybe some engineer. Well, it's not really a torsion bar. It's more of a track because it turns.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some reasoning by it because it's weird the way in some cars it's called this and in some cars it's called that.
Yeah.
And you got to learn that. And you only learn it by like, ugh.
Yep.
And I used to have a hard time like asking, but now I just like, man, I've kind of gotten comfortable with my stupidity, and I'll just be like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about here. I just want to get to what you need. And, but yeah.
Do you or have you dealt with parts quality issues where you're at in the shops you work with? And I'm thinking a lot electronic components, but you can expand on that if you've had experience.
It happens. And I talk to everybody. I think it happens across the board. Everything that's human made or done, it's susceptible. And we have it. What I come down to is I figure it's going to happen no matter. You do so much, you're going to have your set of flaws. That gives me an opportunity to show them why they do business with me. If we got a bad part, I'm in my truck, I'm over there, or, give it to the driver. I don't sweat out, I don't want to fix, we don't need to figure out what happened. Just let's fix what needs to be done. And, let's get them the right part and make it right. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I take that mindset of, sometimes it's a little tough. Sometimes you're like, I used to get pretty wrapped around the axle, like when I first opened up about like, man, because I want to stand behind my parts. I want to have a good product. And, but now I just, I really, it's going to happen. I have one of my shop owners, really great people. I mean, really great people. And like his granddad opened the business in 1951. They're still running it today. And he said, you got to quit getting so worked up. This is going to happen. It usually happens in cycles. You'll get one alternator, you'll get three,
Sure.
And I've kind of resounded to that. I still, it happens. I still get like, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But like I said, I just kind of taken that mentality of let's use this as an opportunity to make them realize why they use us. Bad things are going to happen, but we can make them better, or we can do what we can. And I try to take care of them. If they need a warranty claim, whatever we got to do, get it down and get them fixed.
Have you ever had to go outside of the aftermarket parts network and actually get something from a dealer for a customer in order to make it work? Okay.
And what I've gotten, and I don't know, because I'm just me. I got my store and I just kind of drive along, but I've gotten to where I will, like, for dealer parts, I don't do a very, I just say, hey, I need a very, very, sometimes I don't do any markup. I just get it for them on that, because they could order it themselves. They really could. But what I really believe is, business is going to flow like water. It's going to go with the direction of easiest travel. And, if I want you fixing cars, like, so if you want this, tell me what you need. I'm going to make it happen. And, if I have to drive up there and pick up, we do it all the time. We're going to go over, we're going to go by the Ford dealership. We're going to grab this for you. And that's been, they've bought it on their account and we've went and picked it up and brought it to them, or I bought it on mine and I just bill them. And most times I don't put a markup in it, but depending on what the situation is.
Yeah. Cause if I got Donnie on speed dial and I can just, maybe, we got this alternator. It doesn't work. We tried another one. It doesn't work, but then you can still get me the one that works. Yeah. I'm going to keep calling you. And that's the easiest way rather than going through the dealership and starting the whole process over. That was definitely something that I had experience. Well, I should say still do. So I do the mobile diagnostic thing, and
Mm-hmm.
it seems like a lot lately and frequently throughout the time that I've been doing it, my diagnosis is telling the shop that the new part that they put on there is no good. And it's either creating a similar or maybe different problem that they were originally trying to fix, but this new part's bad. Sorry.
Right.
You got to go back to the drawing board and get something. And I just imagine that's got to be frustrating as the person
Very.
selling the parts, because you didn't build it, right? Donnie
Nope.
did not build this control module, but you're selling it and you got to deal with the repercussions if it doesn't
Yep.
work. But then also on the flip side of it, when you're getting this part returned to you, I mean, the question's got to be in the back of your mind, like, well, is this the problem, right? And
It always, yeah.
is it just a broken wire, blown fuse, or something else completely? Or do I have a bad part here? Do I need to send this back to the manufacturer? So it's got to be difficult to navigate through that.
It is, and that is, I will say, it's helped me having such a good relationship with I know, like, because I first opened up, I didn't know, and I was like, this can't be, it's new, come on,
Yeah. Right.
And I did mistakenly one time, like when I first got it, of course, we were on 7 alternators, and I was like, at some point, I kind of got to say, hey, like,
Right. Okay. Let's take another look at this.
I mean, we're not like at 3, and I was testing it on my bench before I took it over, and they would run it and it would be bad. And I was like,
Yeah.
but you know what? We got, we kind of, and I brought it up, we kind of went back and forth, and then it leads to a scenario where they don't want to do business for a little while. And then, it takes a while to earn that business back. So, it's just, I found like, there's always a way to try to communicate without, so now it's like, okay, and I can put it on there. We have forms that we fill out, and it's like, I just put the customer stated, this, and just, and I kind of got to where I know, I keep saying I'm blessed, but, I know my shops,
Sure.
I know them, and honestly, I really truly feel they care about me. I don't think they would hose me, I don't think they would, and that's kind of the feeling I foster is we're in this together,
Yeah.
The better you do, the better I do, and vice versa, and,
Yep.
I want to see you fixing cars, and, I want you buying parts, and whatever I can do to make that a better experience for you,
That's a really good way to look at it too. And I know some people, might call me naive for doing so, but I think if you treat people the correct way, you treat people right,
yeah.
they're gonna, in general, for the most part, do the same thing for you. I realize it's not 100% true, and I've been burned on it, right? And then that's when you make that call. Okay, I'm not going to deal with that person anymore. But
Right.
for I don't know, I would say the majority of the time, if you're doing right by someone, they're going to do the same thing for you, and you can. And maybe there's a mistake here or there, both ways, but you can be pretty. You can have a nice flow,
Exactly.
between two professionals. So, I guess that'd be my advice for anybody. It's just treat people right.
And I'll tell you, it's been an eye opener since I got to peek behind the curtain of the shops. I got some good ones, but a lot of the times it can be. I get it for you guys. Like I had no idea what it took to fix cars, like and the stress. Like I hear you guys talk on the podcast, and like I see it. Trying to get somebody to understand what diagnostics, what should be billed for that, for what they're not getting billed. I tell every time I talk to my shops, I'm in there, I say it all the time, like, and that's another good thing about what I try to do. So when we were talking about I'm kind of straddling the fence, I'll see walk-in customers, and then I deal with the shops, and I have some instances where, somebody comes in, they price a bunch of parts, and then the shop's pricing, or the shop's priced a bunch, and then all of a sudden I see this person's in front of me, and they're pricing the exact same thing. So I know they've been to the shop, and then they're trying to do that. Well, why the shop's marking all this up, and I try to do a really good job of like explaining, like, yeah, you don't know what I mean, if you knew what it takes to fix a car, like, do you own a lift? Do you have, a scanner that's like $3,000 that needs like a $900 subscription every year? There's a lot that goes into it. And then a lot of just like some of the guys I've met are I love being around people that, and you talk to them, like you pick their brain. I love getting that knowledge, and like some of the guys I see in the shop just blow me away with just like how this car is talking and like, and looking at like one of my first examples is like sitting at a CTI course. Cause if I got shops going to that, I go to it, and I sat there with them and they were doing something on a scope. This was my first eye opener on it and they had all those squiggly lines going across there, and guys were like, I see a misfire. I see this. And I was like, what? It was like a scene from the Matrix, and it's just the digits flying by. And I'm like, you're seeing a misfire?
Yeah.
I don't see that, so I have like a huge respect for you guys, like what it takes to fix a car. And I try to parlay that, like tell people that when they're in my parts store, and it's not just that. Also, when they fix your car, they're married to it. I mean, they're going to, if something happens on it, they're going to come. Now, odds they're going to come to me and I'm going to give them another part, and, but we're going to get you taken care of. But there's a lot to it, and people don't, I try to educate, try to like, because just like me, I had one the other night. I work on my own stuff all the time, but a friend of mine, we were helping him out. It was a ball joint on a Toyota Sienna, and I looked at it. It's one of those ones, 3 bolts here. It's that, but I don't have a lift. That bolt's probably gonna be all. I called one of my friends at a shop, like, can you knock this ball joint out? I just don't want to mess with that, I mean, because it's a 45-minute job, but then it could break a bolt. The studs could snap off. I mean,
Sure,
so knowing what it takes to fix something sometimes helps. Because I was like, I don't want to deal with that right now. I've only got like a day and a half off this week. I don't want
to turn it all into busting your knuckles. That's the thing is, I've tried to just remind myself of this in the last couple of years, is that almost everybody you talk to, whether it's in this industry or not, but it's specifically in the automotive industry, there are exceptions, but almost everybody you talk to, it is an expert at something within the industry to some level, right? And maybe they don't know what you know as well. Like if you're just talking about parts, or you're talking about diagnostics, or you're talking about ball joints, like you might be the expert in that area, but that they could still teach you something. They still have some expertise that you could learn from, but you got to be willing to talk and interact with them. And then you really gain something from that. And when I go to these shops and I'm doing the diagnostic thing, right? They're calling me in like, hey, Sean, you're the specialist for this network problem. Come tell us what's wrong. And I will, and whatever. But that doesn't mean that like I'm smarter than everybody in the shop. Far from it. This guy knows transmissions, or this guy knows body work, or this guy knows differentials, or whatever, way more than me. If you take the time to actually interact with them, you can benefit from it yourself immensely. And I think everybody could take, a lesson from that, just to like see, what is this person I'm dealing with? What is their expertise? What do they have to offer? And like I said, there's exceptions, obviously. But
and then just how, like, going back again to like how hard it is for diagnostics to truly build that, like what it takes. I can see as a like when you have a shop and the owner has the business hat on, does it make more sense to have a guy like you come in, knock it out quickly, and has his guys still churning those fast jobs? Yeah, absolutely it does. That makes a lot of sense, instead of having a couple of guys spinning their wheels, sitting there, that makes perfect sense. It's kind of like what I got back to is trying to find, what I always do is I find like cars, like when I had to do his license, and then here now I get like a car that's, it's in the in-op lane, it's broken, but you have time to sit there and kind of mess with it, talk, play around, whereas in a shop environment, when, you've got cars to get out, customers want their cars.
Yep.
Pronto.
Yep. For sure. Yeah, it's a form of outsourcing that makes you more productive, right? And that's why we're calling you to get parts, because we're not going to make a mass airflow sensor or an alternator, right? There's somebody that's better and more efficient than that. And so I think the automotive world is headed that way in a lot of directions, where there'll be a number of different specialists like ADAS and diagnostics and programming, and there's just going to be a lot of specialty areas that people can choose from, which is going to open up a lot of career paths that people can follow and be specialists in that area.
I would like to. I'm going to try to get in front of some of the kids. I've heard you guys talk about it, the technician shortage. Every shop I go to is dying for people. And everyone, and I don't think a lot of people realize how it's going. I'm reading a book right now, and it's, it's kind of on how like CAN bus and LIN and things like that, and some of these cars, they have like, one of them's like, I think it said 90 million lines of code. It's ridiculous, and how everything's going. There's going to be a point where there's a big part of it's going to be computer programmer as a part of being a mechanic. There's a lot of opportunity there, and I don't think the younger people really see that side of it and know that that's something that they could get into and automate. And that would be real. I mean, you're doing what you guys do, like, and doing that stuff is a real. To me, like I said, it fascinates me. I'm fascinated. I'm kind of a hobbyist with it, but, and a parts store, and it helps me at my parts store.
Sure.
But yeah, I really do think it's just crazy the way the cars are going.
Well, speaking of which, you're diving into some new areas. You were telling me you're getting into keys. Tell me about that. How's that going so far for you?
It's going great. Like, so we've really only been, I bought the equipment a while back ago, and then I kind of done some training. I've been kind of playing with it here. Kind of kicked it off this last week. I said, hey, I'll start doing them. Gosh, I've already been doing at least 1 or 2 keys a day. And, it's been really good. And, I listened, that's how I told you I found your podcast, was I was trying to do some research on that. And I listened to that one where you guys talking about keys, and like right off, I had some of the like things, like I remember you guys saying like, oh, stay away from a car if it's got problems, you're doing it. First one I do was one of the guys at one of the shops, like he was doing like a side job at the shop, like it was kind of a family member, and they'd put in a brand new, it was a Honda Accord, and it would just intermittently die shutting down the road.
Okay.
And he determined it was the immobilizer. And so he ignition switch. So he put a new ignition switch in. Well, of course, the new key wouldn't talk with the car. And I still didn't really know a lot. So I kind of came over there, and I was like, I didn't know what I was doing, but I was kind of playing with my new toy. And and erring on the side of cautious, I didn't do, like, I should have just done all keys lost and redone. But it wasn't talking. That's what it was. And I remember thinking, because there was something going wrong. And when I did the thing, it was like, this is like the worst one to try to learn on. Like, there's something going on with the immobilizer, and like, I don't know enough to tell you what to do, And then I ended up calling tech support on Alltel the next day, and he was like, the immobilizer's bad. And I said, it's a brand new immobilizer. He was, it has to be bad. So I told him that, and they had bought it from another store, not me. And I ordered one, brought it over. We put it in. It worked.
Nice.
And I was like, right off, it was a brand new part. And I didn't know to say like, that part's bad.
Sure.
I didn't have the confidence to say like, I kind of was thinking, I was kind of thinking like, well, it's not going. And we took the old one, we took it out, and we put the old one back in, and it starts up, and I'm like, that's not supposed to happen. Like,
that's so huge for, for somebody who works in that side of the industry to experience what a lot of techs have gone through. Right. And it makes you question, like, did I do this right? Did I make all my checks correctly? Is my tool working? You question everything. Your process completely breaks down, and you're just lost. And then maybe you eventually do get to the point where you realize, okay, it's a bad part. And then you're so frustrated with that bad part. Right. Yeah. And so I don't know if you've experienced any, it sounds like you have a good relationship with the shops, but I don't know if you've experienced any like animosity from technicians or somebody that's
Oh yeah,
gotten a part like that. It sucks. That is a sucky
it does.
position to be in
I
for
mean,
sure.
and I stood there and took my butt chewings, and because I'm just as disappointed. So I've stood there and taken it,
But
yeah,
you
because it
you
does.
didn't make the part though. That's the other thing
I know.
is you didn't.
Everybody needs some. It just rolls down the line because then I call the DC, and I'm like, hey, or
Yeah,
I vent to
yeah.
somebody. I don't think they really pay. They do pay attention. When we fill out the forms,
Uh-huh.
I will say I've been pretty impressed. Carquest, you fill out the forms, they have a lot of. We get emails every now and then. Hey, we're seeing a lot of defects. Turn all these in, and they're getting
Gotcha.
these new in.
Okay.
They do a job on that. It's a constant rework. Right now we're in such crazy days with how getting parts is going right now. It's just such a different animal.
Yeah, that was another question I had is how the supply chain crisis has affected your side of the business or everything really, but it's really got to be putting the
It's
crunch
getting
on you.
rougher and rougher. Starting out is, if I needed 10 of this, I would just order 10 of them and have them next day or, within the day. And now it's like, well, it was getting to where it's like, well, I can get 5 here. I can get 3 here. I can get 2 there. Now it's getting to where it's like, I can get about 4 of them if I piecemeal them from a couple different places. And then we're going to wait a day or two. And, some of the motor oil is getting really tough to get.
Yeah, I heard about the diesel oil is getting real hard to
Very,
find.
yeah. 1540 is really hard to get in the Rotella, and some filters are getting hard to get. We have multiple product lines. I've been able to, gladly we took on brought Fram in. We have our Carquest Premiums, is what our majority seller. But I have been able to switch over and say, hey, we got Fram, we can step this up and get this one here. We also have AC Delco. We have Motorcraft. I've been able to find a way. Now there's a couple that it's like, it's just they're not there, and
Yeah.
yeah, it can be rough, and it's really rough, especially when you have customers. There's people that need to roll. They got their business, and they need their cars to be maintained, and
Yeah, right. Yeah, you got to get that oil in there for sure. Um
yeah.
what this is another thing I was thinking about. What are your feelings on stuff like Amazon and how has that affected your business?
So
It's probably not as big with the shops, maybe some, maybe not, but I have a feeling with on the DIY side of things like
it
Amazon
does.
really cut into the market.
They have. Fortunately, with all these things that we're talking about is one of the things, it's hard. They do the price points. Somehow, they're getting in, and it concerns me because I was telling you, when I had my car lot, I bought a lot of stuff. Tried to buy that stuff on the internet,
Mhm.
and you 7 out of 10 times you can be okay, but there's going to be some ones that come back and they're not. Parts is very you gotta really look, and just like we were saying, there might be on a Ford, there might be 5 options for this part in that one model year, and it determines on when it was made, and then or those what on the one Silverados, there's a classic, it's a whole different truck,
Well,
you
well,
know.
tell me about that. I spent a long time on one when I was looking at the wrong diagram because I had it up for a class, or I don't know if I had it up for a classic and I was working on a not classic or vice versa. But man, did it screwed me up.
Yes, and those are the things, and so we do this every day. We do this every day. Chevy Malibu. There's Malibu, and there's a classic on it. It's a whole different car,
Yeah.
and we do this every day. And to see the struggles we have. If you only did this once in a great while, and that's what I used to run into. I always try to kind of think of how people are coming at me, and I do get that. People come in. Well, it's on Amazon for this. Um, you know, but what I've work on is service. Hey, if it breaks, and I just like me. So if you buy a U joint from me and it breaks, you come to me and it's under warranty. I'm directly handing you a new one. You're not going to wait to send it off. You're not going to, because I know how I am. Like, I could literally take you upstairs in my shop and I've got a whole room of parts that I ordered somewhere that I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I can have a flea market someday, or I've thought about maybe having my own like online kind of thing, get rid of some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because I did it. I always tried, and I found out laws of average. Go somewhere that can help you, and I've even, tell people, just give them my best effort of saying, hey, I had one. It was this has been a couple months ago, back in summer, and it was those like on a riding mower, the fuel pump and the little black cylinder, and Amazon was way cheaper. And then so I was like, oh, we don't usually get beat by that much. We're talking like mine was almost 50, and this one he was saying $12. So I pulled it up, and it was like, so when you crossed it, the part was there, but the right part was up small in the right corner, and they had this big one for $12 blown up in your face that it just tempted me to click on, but it wasn't the same part number.
Right.
So I'm like, I was like, I don't think that's going to work. I mean, I know it looks identical, and you know what? You may slap it on there and it may work, but that's not the right part for what you're doing. Like, that's not the right part. You're not getting the right thing, and it may work, it may not. But with us, that's what saves us is, we have the people there that can, when you have that, and I get it all the time. Numerous times I got people that come in, I've done business with them, I've gave them my little spiel. I say that all the time. I imagine the guys that work around me get sick of hearing me say that. Like, when I have my car lot, I always try to save money. I always try to order all these things. And, and I've just found, come here. And you know what? If it's wrong, I'll take it back. If it defects, we defect it, we break it. Or if it's broke, if it failed on you, we're going to give you a new one, and there's something to that, and, some of these warranties are 2 and 3 years. If you're shopping with me, you come back and we have it all in there. I'm really big about make sure we put things under people's phone numbers so we can find their records. And, I'm going to take care of you. And it's kind of won the day. And I even had one guy, he's right down the road from me. And he comes in all the time, and he'll get some advice on doing stuff. And, he came in and he bought brakes from Amazon, and he couldn't get them to fit, he couldn't go. And then we finally looked it up, and it was something silly. It was like he'd ordered the wrong thing. And he's like, all right, I'm sending them back, and he just bought the parts from me, just because, and I even like, we took him, I can't remember what it was, but we had some of them, but then we had to run down and pick up the rears or something. So then I just dropped it. His house was right around the corner. So he paid for him. We just dropped him off at his house, and, it's little things like that can help win the day. And parts,
sure.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that Amazon or whoever online doesn't have, that's that personal touch, and that's where it's at. That's where, you are able to set yourself apart, and be that professional, right? Not just be a button click online and hope for the best. You can
so many, one guy that works for me, he was a mechanic for a long time. And then, his body is not, taking a toll on him. And I will say the 2 people that I've had work for me that were mechanics, it's tough getting you guys to switch to be a parts guy. Like, it's not an easy transition. Like I thought, oh yeah, they're going to know, but it's a different world when you're on our side of the counter with like how it goes. But I'll tell you what, he's really good now. He's came a long, like he is one of my top guys. I mean, I got 2 really good guys. I got 2 really good guys. The other guy, they're just 2 different types. But one was a mechanic. He's very, like, and then the other one, he does a lot of, like, he works on his own stuff. Him and his dad have a lift. He works on a lot of tractors. It's not just the people I hire are kind of, I like them to have passion to them. You got to be interested in this. You got to want to do this, because sometimes it's really tough, and it's like, oh. Right.
So, well, just having a background in general. I know when I worked with service writers in the shop, if they had like zero knowledge about cars, maybe they were great at sales, right? They could sell, ice cubes to an Eskimo or whatever. That's probably really politically incorrect, but they're really good at sales, but they know jack squat about cars. Yeah. I don't want to really work with that person. I really like to work with somebody who has some background. They don't have to be a mechanic, but I will say some of my favorite service writers were technicians at one point or another. Maybe they weren't very successful at it, but they get it. Like they've been there. And maybe the same thing is true for parts professionals, is that they've seen, that side of the industry, the technician side of things too. But hey, let's turn the tables here. Maybe it would benefit parts people if technicians understood the parts side of it more. And actually, that's the question I got for you is, what is something that you think technicians or shops in general could do to make the whole process smoother and easier and better for everybody? If there's one or several things, what
Just
could they do?
For me, what I've noticed streamline, and I've watched one place I do business with. I've watched them go from being 100% call to transition to doing probably 95% of their orders online, and it makes such a difference. They gained that confidence in learning it, and then they'll call me now and like, there's the part number I'm looking at and I'm showing here, and and sometimes they want me, they'll say, hey, can you double check this, and it's not really a double check like they don't know. It's just like, they want, hey, this, or where can we find it? Because sometimes our store, we can see other places that they can't, but that having that clear picture, and I get it, because I spend a lot of time of going over and doing, so I know how it must, and I know how when I'm working on something, you can get that tunnel vision, and
Sure.
it's, it's like, it just looks like this. It bends over and goes around that. That's what I need.
Yeah.
And you're like, I get it. Could you maybe text me a picture of it? It's that painting the picture of what you're really seeing and what you're wanting, as opposed, and then sometimes I scratch my head. And it used to drive me up a wall. Now I just let it go. I just let it. I've had like, send me a part, like match this. I match it, rush it over there, and then it comes back the next day. It's like, what? I know that was right. That was the exact right thing. But on the other hand, I figure maybe something happened. It didn't work out. That wasn't it. Or in the time it got there, and I used to like have kind of like, and it was not me questioning the shops. It was me questioning me, did I get the right thing? Was I getting you the right thing? And now I'm just kind of like, I just got I got a pretty good rapport. I was coming like, was everything around that? Like, I mean, I know I got it right. Yeah, just this, and there's usually a solid explanation for it. Or, and we've gotten pretty good where it's just like, oh yeah, we were just way off base, And,
Sure.
it's okay,
Yep. Stuff happens.
Yeah. But, yeah, it, I had a question. Do you guys teach that at all at your school, ordering parts?
So we don't have anything built into the curriculum, but at our particular school, and we're the only one in the state of Minnesota that I'm aware of, we actually have a parts department within our program. So we have a dedicated employee who is our parts guy. Shout out to Cliff. I don't know if he listens to this, but what is good about that is that the students will go back to the parts department. There's a counter. We have some stock. It's limited, but they order parts directly from Cliff with our authorization to fix live cars or school cars or their cars. And it at least is a little bit of an experience to deal with that side of things, right? Because they have to give him the correct information. Like, and it's good for us as instructors because it saves us time. Like our focus is on the students and the instruction, right?
Right.
And so I don't want to be spending my time ordering parts. Like that is a waste for everyone when I could be working with the student, but they get to deal with Cliff. Now that entails they need to give him the correct information. And if they don't have the correct information, and Cliff does a good job, like he'll grill these guys like, well, what size rotor is it? Or, what's the axle ratio in this thing? And if they don't have that info, he sends them out of there. Right. So they learn as they go throughout the program to, okay, if I'm going to go back there and get a part, I need to have all the vehicle information. I need to be able to answer all these questions. And so, yeah, it's not like we test on it. It's not like it's part of the official curriculum, but I think it gives them a good idea of, okay, this is what it's going to be like for me. If I need to get the right part, I got to bring the right information to the table, at least, in order to get the right thing.
And as I keep saying, that's key, that communication. And I've thought about, we have a tech college. It's pretty close to here. And a lot of guys that come in my store teach down there. And I've thought about, like reaching out, like it would, even just if somebody come down there and just give a presentation on here's a, and not trying to sell anything of like saying, hey, here's like web links and how it works, but just put one up in front of them and like, this is what, basically this is what you're going to see when you order parts online. And, cause it's such a big part of the industry of getting the right part, it's such a big part of just kind of doing like a familiarization and see if they'd be open to that. Like just a real quick presentation of here's web links, here's how it orders, like put it in the basket. And these are the things you look for, like when you pull it up, when you look at these rotors, like, are they this size? Are they this size? That's what you're going to ask. These are kind of stupid questions. You just want to skip over them. You're just going to make everybody angry and you ask those. Which we had a big update and they said that all questions are going to matter. And but some of them I'm kind of like, but I got burned a while back ago, right? Because I don't want to be that, because everybody messes with the parts guy. Like, oh, why are you asking me all these questions on this? And it was a Toyota, I want to say a Camry, and it was XE or LE, something like that. It was something simple like that. And I just clicked right on by it. The shocks were different. One of them had a mounting bracket that was different, which submodel it was. When I think I found out that it was like a Lexus, like it was like the upgrade, and it was like almost something like a Lexus or something type suspension. I was like, huh. And that's what I did. That's how I hosed that guy, sent him down the road with the wrong shocks, because I didn't want to ask him, is it an XE or an LE? Because I felt like, I had that like, oh, I don't want to ask that.
You give him the 4-wheel drive wiper blades.
Yes. And that happened. So then I'm standing at him and, he sat in his driveway and he had his car all tore apart, and I could have found that out had I said, is it XE or LE? And, I might be mad. I can't remember what exactly. I'm pretty sure that's what XE and LE. So now I ask, I'm like, I've gotten comfortable with my, I ask, if some people are like, and that's the thing about other like DIY, when you ask, like, sometimes like people, they come in, 0407. You're like, whoa, what?
I don't know. I think it's a Chevy. Yeah.
I tell people, if you don't know your car, I dang sure don't know it. I mean, there's a while. I mean, we can have the right year and the VIN and everything. It's tough.
Right.
And now you're giving me a 3-year range and you don't know.
That's got to be a battle, because most people don't know those details or know what engine or whatever.
And the other one is they got the old guys that used to do it, and they come in, they're like, wow, you don't have books? And you're like, no, we don't have books. I do have some, and honestly, I'm kind of an older guy. I enjoy flipping through the books. Like, I can process the information easier out of a book than I can on the computer screen for some reason. But, I got one, it's like, I know in your day, like 6 filters ran 90% applications.
Yeah.
You could just walk back there. Oh, it's a Ford, this motor, it's this filter. You walk back there now, I've probably got like 1,500 different filters back there, and they're all in a order. Like, I can't find them unless I ask you these questions. I don't know where they're at exactly on that. There's just too many parts. Like, I can't, I know back in the day, that's so you could just say, oh, Ford, that's what this one here. And I'm getting, there is some parts that you do, like, I know that, and you grab it, but it's a whole different animal, and it's all broke down by that computer. And like it or not, because some days I do, if we have an internet outage, oh my God, our store, it runs to you can't look up parts, you can't do, that's.
Yeah, I imagine.
You can't flip open and nobody prints out the manuals anymore. You can't flip through books anymore. They have some things online, but if your internet's off, you can't pull up your digital catalogs.
Yep. It's crazy how much we rely on it. Boy, it would shut everything down. And everywhere, but the automotive industry included. Good luck. Man.
As much as I can play, I really do. I love what I do. I really do. I've had some like, oh gosh, that sucks. But by and large, I really enjoy all the people that I work around. I enjoy like going into the shops. I enjoy my DIY customers. I enjoy that they come in, they got the unique stories, or I see people that, like a younger guy that's never done brakes before, and he's watching YouTube and, he's wanting to do it. And,
sure.
It's like, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, just watch that video. Because I think back, man, what if I'd have had YouTube when I was young? I
Dude.
don't know how it.
Oh my gosh. I so wish I would have had that.
Me and my friends used to work on cars all the time. And I was talking to a friend of mine from high school. I was like, what did we do? Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have YouTube. How did we? He was like, remember we'd find somebody that knew and we'd ask them.
You talk to that old grumpy guy and,
Yeah.
and hopefully he wanted to share something with you. That was it. I mean, honestly, it was very different trying to seek out information. And I mean, I'm not even that old, but I'm pre-YouTube as far as when I came up in this industry. And yeah, you had to find someone who knew the stuff and just hope that what they were teaching you was legit. And you didn't have really much of an option. You find somebody, well, here's how you do spark plugs. And okay, all right, I'm going to follow what you say. And then try to figure it out on your own. But
by God, that worked.
boy, everybody that is young right now has such everything. Almost everything is just out there. You just have to go for it. You just have to have the ambition to go absorb it, and it's there. I mean, that is so powerful. If you don't, that's on you. That is 100% on you if you don't take full advantage of everything that's out there. But
absolutely, like, man, I think about it all the time. Like, man, what if I'd have had that? Like, man, because I'm more like, man, I probably still would have been, I was kind of I probably still been a punk.
Yeah. All right. Last question I got for you. Has anyone ever asked you to look up a 97 Toyota Tacoma water pump gasket as a joke?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So like one of the other stores, like they call me like, hey, they're like, can you describe it to me? You tell me I just need to know what it looks like. Like, well,
so for anyone listening who has not done this yet, it's pretty widely known in the automotive industry, but if you haven't, Google a 97 Toyota Tacoma water pump gasket and you'll have a chuckle. So
yeah, it's like you had to have been doing that. Like there's no other, like the machine don't just drop them all perfectly like that in plastic. I mean, it's a madman design right there.
Some engineers were having some fun. Yeah. Oh man. Well, thank you for joining me, Donnie. This was good talking to you. A different side of the industry. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. Yeah.
No, man. Thank you for having me on, man. I enjoy your podcast.
Thank you.
I love listening to it. Like I said, once a day I pop it on when I'm driving, and like your variable valve timing. I love listening to that. Your thing on transmissions, which I just had our Nissan Versa, just the transmission crapped out on it the other day.
Okay.
Yeah, one of those CVTs.
Sure.
The newest one we have for a delivery car.
Oh man,
I know. Yeah, but no, it just I really love being around this industry. I really love what I do. Love selling parts and taking care of my customers.
Okay, that's going to do it for today's episode. Another big thank you to Donnie for spending some time with me on the episode this evening. Really appreciated that and enjoyed my talk with him. I also like to say thank you to everybody that's listening to the show and all the feedback that I've gotten. Of course, the last two guests that I've had on the show here have reached out and wanted to be on the show. Maybe that's you as well. Maybe you've got a topic that you'd like to discuss or some knowledge that you'd like to bring to the table, something that you'd like to share or talk to me about. I'd be happy to have you. You can find me on Facebook, reach out to me there. There's a few other ways you can find my email and stuff like that, but Facebook's probably the easiest way. Just shoot me a message and we'll figure something out. But other than that, let's all get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.
Yeah.